and welcome to Campfire Curmudgeon. I'm your host, Heidi S., and...
Nick. The Curmudgeon.
The Curmudgeon.
I'm back. We're back.
You were back last time.
I know.
Well, this episode is going to be part 2 of our Victorian era spiritualism discussion, and we're going to start today talking about the Fox sisters. Nick, do you know who the Fox sisters are?
I have no foxing clue.
Okay. Well, if anybody who's listening is interested in Victorian era spiritualism, they'll probably have heard of the Fox sisters.
Mm-hmm.
These are the sisters that kind of started the trend of knocks, the ghostly knocks for answers.
Okay.
So these sisters lived in the township of Arcadia. This was in 1848, so we're still right there in the middle of the spiritualist movement where people are willing to believe anything. The girls
Not like today where everyone is rational and
well,
and
I mean,
fact-based.
you know what I'm saying.
And they don't suffer fake news.
They don't suffer fake news, right? Well, this was right in... this was in the middle of when it was really popular.
Mm-hmm.
So this was like when spiritualism was in vogue and everyone was on with that trend. So people were down for listening to what these girls had to say. They were 15 and 12.
They were DTL, down to listen.
They were down to listen. Maggie and Kate, they discovered that if they clapped their hands, knocks would sound back, which sounds to me just like echoes, right?
Yeah. In fact, we're listening on a mic that could be echoey, so it's like,
yeah.
I heard a knock.
The ghost knocked. Well, they were doing this. They found that, like, I guess they could knock at the right frequency or something, and their neighbors were kind of impressed by it. So then they sort of started to be like, ooh, how else can we impress them? So they decided that they could ask a ghost to answer by knocking. But this time, the knocks weren't coming from the girls' hands. They were asking questions, and they were getting knocks. I think it was once for no, twice for yes, to answer their questions. And at first, they started showing this to their neighbors, and the neighbors were really impressed. They would even go more in depth by actually knocking out letters of the alphabet, like once for A, twice for B, so on and so forth, which sounds like it would just take forever, but that way they could get the ghosts to spell out names, so they could be like, well, what's your name?
Right.
Oh, did you say George? Once for yes, twice for no, whatever they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
So they got to be more and more popular, and they started to come up with this story that a spirit, Charles Rosa, was a peddler who had been murdered by the previous owner of the house that they lived in, who was John Bell. The interesting thing is, years later, when the cellar of the house they lived in was examined, they actually did find human remains buried in the cellar. And I don't know if anything ever came of that, if they were ever able to figure out, I mean, this was a long, long time ago, but I don't know if any testing has been done recently to try to, like, locate whose remains these are. But,
Pose.
The local media, no.
The telltale art.
Yeah, I was like, wrong, no. But their local media was just, like, crazy about these sisters. And they had an older sister named Leah. She didn't live with them. She was in Rochester. Her husband had abandoned her, so she was living in just poverty. She had no means of supporting herself, really. So she heard about her sisters and what they were doing. Like, it was so popular. She heard about this and was like, oh, I know what I can do. She came on down and was like, I'm your manager. This is how we're going to do things. So she started... getting them so popular, they rose to actually international fame. So their whole hometown, they were like celebrities. Like, everybody knew these girls that
Hi,
could...
I'm a publicist/consultant.
Is that Leah?
That's gonna be me, Leah. I don't do anything except get you guys attention.
She didn't do anything. She just got them attention, but I mean, it seemed to work. She seemed to know what she was doing. Eventually, the girls moved to Rochester, back where Leah lived. And that tapping, knocking sounds followed them. And they actually got really popular with the Quakers, the religion Quaker. This couple, Isaac and Amy Post, they were convinced that the girls' abilities were legitimate. And they became huge backers of them. And at the time, the Quakers were fiercely anti-slavery. They were in favor of women's rights. they really actually liked the concepts of spiritualism because a lot of women were taking kind of very proactive roles. Like you've got Leah who's managing her sisters. They're like this. It's like, you know, their form of work. And you have all these female mediums and stuff. So surprisingly, the Quakers were on board for this.
Right. It's like clergy, except women can do it.
Yeah. They were like, yeah, we're down. So Leah started charging people to see. Like, hey, come hear the knocking. Come hear my sisters talk to ghosts. So the money just started pouring in.
It's like a stupid version of Field of Dreams. Like,
right, but it's true. You knock, they will come. If you knock,
people will be like, ooh, okay, apparently ghosts got knuckles now.
I mean, they got so much money, they actually went on tours. Like, they actually went on tour and were like, come see these sisters, the Fox sisters, come see them or come hear them talk to ghosts.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Let's get ready for some knocking.
I don't know, like, I mean, I guess just everywhere they went was haunted. I don't know, like, how do you know you're touring a haunted place? But they were really, really popular. They were really impressed by a lot of scientists, journalists even, were starting to write about them. And
apparently this draws a crowd.
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
Well, the more famous they became...
Grab your pen, Nigel.
Yeah. Why is that so funny?
I don't know, because I don't usually do accents.
Oh my gosh.
Because my English turns into Irish, which then turns into Scottish.
Yeah, something weird. But as these girls started making money, other women were like, oh, that's not a bad idea. Mm-hmm. So they had more and more women like, oh, I can do this too. And so this became like a thing where other mediums started saying that they can do this too. And then as soon as seances, which we talked about last time, as soon as those got popular...
It's an arms race of bullshit.
Right, well, as soon as like seances started...
Knocking? Oh, what about wind? Or you're like, ectoplasm. Yeah.
Well, this knocking was something that was very popular at seances.
Gotta find a way to escalate this.
Right?
Sorry, go ahead.
Well... At first, they only did, like, the tapping or the knocking. Other methods were, like, you know, automatic writing, things like that. Kind of like what you said, were introduced into the seances, all sorts of stuff. So it did escalate. But as for the Fox sisters, alcoholism became a big part of their downfall. The two, I believe it was both younger sisters, maybe just one, they started drinking a lot. I think it was actually Katie became like a really bad alcoholic. And some spiritualists, they were concerned about her, and people started seeing the cracks, and that's when a lot of reporters started kind of digging in further because they were like, oh, they're breaking.
So other charlatans are looking at this charlatan and be like, honey, you have a dependency problem. like normally I wouldn't say anything, but like, and I'm a shameless, like, I'm a shameless grifter. I'm just doing this because you're doing it, and you know, go girl, and live and let live. But honey, you needed some kind of 12-step.
Well, you can imagine at that time when it was like women didn't have like a ton of freedoms necessarily. Sure. A lot of the time you still couldn't just hang out with a gentleman by yourself. You
right, the Victorian era is still very associated with like repressive English. Like, how dare you show happiness?
You showed your ankles
to
me.
That is not the English proper way.
Don't you show me that ankle.
Scandalous. Did you hear about Martha?
Well, it was like they wanted a way to have fun. They had all this money that they didn't really know what to do with. So that's kind of what happened with Katie. Was she was like, I can buy so much booze. And she got a little nutty, and there was a reporter in New York that was offering $1,500 to expose them as frauds. Mm-hmm. And Katie marched on in there and was like, yeah, she dragged Margaret with her and was like, we need some money. Yeah, we're frauds. Hi. Like, flat out just turned themselves in.
Reward money, please.
Yep. Do I get the reward? They got the reward. They showed...
Idiot Yankees. Like...
They showed these reporters that the way they were doing this was they were cracking. So I've heard two different variants. It's either they're cracking their toe joints, like you just cracked your knuckles.
Ghosts have knuckles and joints.
There we go.
Are there ghosts apparently are made of ectoplasm, eyeballs, earballs, and knuckles.
Well, they were cracking, but they were saying it was a knock.
Right.
So they were saying, oh, you're knocking on the wall. But I've also heard that they were tapping their toes. I don't know. I mean, I just feel like, how can you continuously crack your toes over and over again? That seems kind of weird, but at the same time, if they're tapping their feet, I feel like somebody would just be like, stop tapping your damn foot.
Yeah, everybody knows that. So you have to have some type of dexterity or...
Yeah, I guess they were just, they
like,
discovered a way.
Right now, I will crack the one joint in my pinky toe. Like,
well, what I'm wondering is if they, like, found a way to almost, like, snap, like snap, but with their toes. Because in those Victorian boots, you might not have necessarily been able to see that motion. However they did it, they figured out a way to do this. Margaret, she even gave a toe-cracking, exhibit that she did. Like, she put on a show and charged people to come see.
Step right in and see the most disgusting thing you've ever seen that has no appeal other than it's the explanation.
But they went from being such a big deal. People...
I can't even maintain my old-timey accent.
No, you can't.
It's just disgusting.
You died. I was going to let it go.
Step right in and, oh my god, this is bad. You go into a trailer and it's just like a little 5-year-old like soot covered urchin.
No, they were older.
Who's like taking like gardening gloves and he's manipulating this woman's feet and you're like, all right, that'll be 10 pence.
Cool. I don't know how old they were at this time, but this was towards like the end of...
Ooh, that was a hooter.
I think this was towards like as it was becoming less and less popular and people were starting to realize there was a lot of frauds out there. But I just think it's funny. They went from being like, come look at us, we're legit, to, hey look, we're fake, come check it out. A year after the confession, Margaret recanted and she was just like, no, it's not fake. I mean, we can crack our toes and stuff, but no, it's all real. Leah ended up dying the next year. That was 1890. 2 years later, in 1892, Katie died of end-stage alcoholism. And a year after that, Margaret died for the same thing. They died penniless, and at that time, everyone kind of thought they were frauds. All their friends had turned against them, and they were buried in paupers' graves.
See, kids, charlatanism doesn't pay.
I think that's interesting because they're one of the most well-known examples of like frauds during this time. How rampant it was and how easy it was for people to believe that. Because if you think about it now, it's like if somebody said I could talk to ghosts, how many scientists would be like, all right, we'll get you naked in a room and see if you can talk to ghosts, you know? Whereas back then they've got all these skirts and then shoes over their feet and all this where they can just sit there popping their toes or however they were doing it.
You could make a kind of Boogie Nights style black comedy about this whole thing.
You really could. But I just thought that was an interesting way to start the episode with a fraud. Make you feel better.
Yeah, that's why I'm so excited.
I know. I was like, you're so happy because I'm not trying to tell you something is real.
You're like, no, this is for real. No, it was fake, and even though they cracked their knuckles, it was real.
Okay, but here's the interesting thing. I have to throw this in here.
Yes.
Just because. They did find a body in the cellar of that house where they said somebody had been murdered by the previous owner.
You mean people got away with murder before DNA evidence? No way.
Right? I know.
How much? Yeah. Welcome to the history of humanity.
And, well, here's the thing. They found it buried in the cellar. Mm-hmm. It's like maybe they started to dig the house. They were like, body. We'll just cover it and make that the cellar.
Yeah.
Like, you never know.
That was the pet Ralph. He died.
Like, that was already Pet Ralph.
No. Like their gimp or something.
Oh my god.
The gimp's sleeping. I bet you better go wake him up then. Oh, can't wake him up. All right. Well, shit.
Well, just bury him.
Did he have an actual name, by the way?
Not that I knew.
Got to catch a new gimp.
Well, since we're talking about the Victorian era, we can't really talk about the Victorian era. You're still laughing. You thought you're so funny.
I do.
Sometimes I do wish we could film this too, so they could see the ridiculous faces you make. You're so proud of yourself. Now he's making an angry face.
Go on.
We can't talk about the Victorian era without talking about Queen Victoria. She was actually really into this whole spiritualist movement. She was really into psychics and mediums. And she actually became even more, some would say, obsessed when her husband, Prince Albert, died. When he died, she was devastated. She wanted to find a medium that she felt was genuine, real, so she could talk to him again. So she sent out a bunch of people to try to help her figure out who was a real, genuine medium. And they found this 13-year-old boy named Robert James Lees. He said that he could channel the ghost of her dead husband, Prince Albert. So Victoria was still kind of skeptical.
This is a story that's going to end well, isn't it?
It ends interestingly. Victoria knew that a lot of mediums were frauds, so she sent out a bunch of her, top medium testers.
Aide de camp, yeah.
I guess, to go check it out. And they gave all these details of Albert's personal life that when they came and reported back what he had said, she was just shocked. She was like, there's no way anybody would know that about him. Bring him to me.
Much less a little 13-year-old scamp.
Right. So I think he visited about 9 times. And each time he visited, she actually was more and more convinced that this was legit. So she was so convinced, she actually asked him to become the resident medium of the royal household. So he refused, and he promised that he would keep helping her, but he was only really able to channel Albert, it seems like. Albert and Albert's former gun boy, John Brown.
Hold on.
Yeah.
We need to look up the definition of what the fuck a gun boy is.
I guess it's the boy that brings him his gun.
Bring me my guns!
We're gonna assume...
My food will be brought by a valet. My horse...
I mean, speaking of getting weird, it's gonna get weird. For more than 30 years, Robert worked for her. So he was 13. And
I've heard of a fuck boy, but not a gun boy.
Well, we're not talking about him anymore. We're talking about Robert, the 13-year-old medium.
Hear my disappointment.
Yeah, I hear your disappointment. It's weird. The queen, she was 42 at the time. Okay?
That's ancient.
She was 42. Albert was 13.
Yeah.
There was rumors that the relationship was maybe something more.
This is what I was alluding to.
Yes, with the gun boy. I'm aware. Well, maybe she had her own
Queen, I'm Robert
medium
the gun
boy.
Oh,
Robert
fantastic.
wasn't the gun boy.
Oh, am I getting that confused?
You're getting them confused.
I'm not listening. I should listen.
John Brown was the gun boy. He was
Albert's. John Brown.
His name was John Brown. That was Albert's former gun boy. Anyways, Robert was the queen's medium for about over 30 years, I guess. There was a lot of talk about what their relationship was. There was a lot of whispers that maybe something was going on with the medium that was maybe a little scandalous, which, I mean, I was like, it probably means
they smiled at each other once.
Right? Like, she showed her ankle.
Stiff upper lip and whatnot. Is that happiness? How dare they?
Oh my goodness. Well, he would supposedly carry messages back and forth between her and Albert.
Our British friends are gonna just be enchanted with me, aren't they?
They're gonna love you. You should talk with an accent the whole time. The whole show. They will love it.
I'm the smart one.
But he was the queen's shoulder to cry on and everything. A couple people who were in the court and saw her interact with him were just appalled.
Your Majesty the Queen,
they were appalled.
Your cheek on my shoulder feels just like your husband's rifle.
Oh.
It wears the same weight.
He's still getting them confused. Not the same boy. Not the same boy. All right. I'm going to draw you a diagram.
A family tree.
Let me draw you a family tree of whose boy. The gun boy was Albert's. The medium boy was the queen.
It's English.
Got it?
It's the family tree of English royalty looks like a chain because it keeps branching and then connecting.
Well, the queen and Prince Albert were cousins, first cousin, second cousin,
right.
something.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but a lot of people were just appalled by Robert's mannerisms towards the queen.
Right.
He was too friendly with her.
In the 1890s, in that era, the royalty of England not only married within each other, but they also married royalty of other countries.
That's true. I mean, it was kind of business deals.
Right.
So
like the Kaiser of Germany, the King of England, and the Russian Tsar in 1914, they were all first cousins.
Yeah. Yep.
Ugh. Could you imagine, like, all running a country with you and your first cousins?
I thought you were gonna say, imagine the birth defects?
And then you're like, well, we have to go to war with each other. Cousin Nikki, are you ready? Like, to go to war with cousin Wilhelm? Like,
that's an interesting family dynamic.
Yeah, it's like, Thanksgiving's gonna be awkward.
Oh,
but what's Thanksgiving? We're England. We don't know what that is.
Yeah, they don't get that. Only us cool people here get that.
The 5th of November is going to be awkward.
Yeah, I was like, when Christmas. We were awful to all the Native Americans, and we celebrated every year.
You're getting a pile of soot.
Right. Alright, Nicholas, what do you know about Ouija boards? You ever used one?
I know that I think either Hasbro or Mattel has the trademark on them now. Yeah.
I think that's really funny, especially when you think about that, like, you think about the time that it was, I wouldn't say necessarily invented, because the talking board, as it was called, had been around, like, one way or other, you know, for years before it was actually patented. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look here. That was actually patented, I think, in 1891.
Okay.
Yeah, it's OUIJA, Ouija board. And that was actually named because one of the individuals who patented it, she asked what its name was, and that was supposedly the name that the board gave. Very interesting. Let's take a look here. So basically, talking boards, as they were called, were kind of starting to become popular around that time. Before 1891, people had used various different versions. People would make them, and the reason for that is, like we talked about with the Fox sisters, the raps and the knocks and the taps. That was a normally accepted way of communicating with spirits during this era.
Because it was just like, well, of course.
They knock.
They just answer yes or no questions. It's like 20 questions.
Well, but that was the problem, was when they wanted an answer that was more than just yes or no, they went with the alphabet technique.
Yes.
Tap out the alphabet. And that got to be really tedious. People sat around waiting so long that they got bored, and it was just like, we don't care. We don't care what you're trying to spell. So people wanted a quicker way to come to those conclusions. So in 1891, it was actually patented. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing about this was that actually it had to be proven. So the patent office, they were like, we're not going to patent this.
This is going to be a high bar to clear, right? It has to be proven.
It has to be proven. So
it's like proving the miracles of a saint.
I'm making air quotes. Yes. They proved that this works. I mean, I've heard some crazy stories about Ouija boards, so I don't necessarily know what my personal feeling is on them.
If you out there have your crazy, like, I want to do a Ouija board episode where we just,
absolutely, we have to do a
where we just talk. It's listener provided Ouija board episodes.
Listener provided,
like
guys,
Ouija board experiences.
Give us your weird Ouija board stories. But they actually, so can you imagine? They took this down to the patent office, and everybody had like a little mini seance Ouija board session there, to actually determine whether or not it was proven enough to be patented. So this was one of the funny things, that it was considered like
evidence.
Yeah, they were like, this is proof, this is real. So it was this big thing where they're like, it actually does as advertised. We proved it scientifically at the patent office. And it was, it was a huge trend. I think it's so funny. I'm trying to remember who it was. I'm going to have to double check that actually was the one that patented it. Because I know, like you said, it's a game company now, which is so weird to me that you can buy it like any other board
Hasbro.
game.
Yeah, no, I just looked it up on Amazon. I just looked it up on Amazon, and actually there are different types of Ouija boards for different people. I don't think it's something that...
No, there's all sorts of different variants.
But the main ones, like the top seller one, it doesn't quite say who the manufacturer is. This is as of like September 2017. The maker of it is Winning Moves Games.
Interesting.
It's on Amazon Prime for $22.88.
Well, I wonder if the patent ran up for it.
The top review right now, 1 star. Tried to summon Satan. My mother showed up.
Oh!
So imagine, like, you're like,
awkward.
Yes, Dark Lord of the Universe, I want to become your vessel.
Answer
and it's like, your ghost mom is yelling at you, like, how dare you try to summon Satan?
That cracks me up. Oh my god.
The third item is the Hasbro Ouija board. It's $1 cheaper, and it's made by Hasbro, and you can get it by Thursday.
Wow.
We're recording this on Tuesday.
Like, let's get it.
Yeah.
Originally, it was the Kennard Novelty Company that actually came up with that. So they realized that it was becoming like this big craze.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, there was something called spiritualist camps in Ohio, and these camps would use what they called a talking board.
Mm-hmm.
So it was very different variations of like that same kind of board with numbers, letters. They had some type of planchette that's that little device that actually chooses or points.
Right, it's the cursor of the Ouija board. So, which it's like, okay, if you're going to manufacture, like, hey, can we make money off of this? Well, it's really popular right now. Well, what are our overhead costs? Is it going to be hard to mass produce a board with letters and numbers on it? And then, well, what about the cursor thingy? We can get a jigsaw and cut like an oval shape, and with a pointy end, and
basically,
and a circle in them, and we could get a hole saw and cut a circle out of the middle, and then we just tell people like, ooh, and we let them do all the lifting.
Basically,
and now it's cardboard and like a magnifying glass.
Yeah, I was like, what is it, cardboard? I don't know what the original ones were made out of. I'd be really interested to know if it was something like a cardboard like that, or if it was wood, what it was.
Or slate.
I don't think it wasn't slate. This was 1886.
Yeah.
It would have been, I mean, they could produce a cardboard type substance.
True. But they built stuff to last.
I know, that's why I'm wondering if it was wood.
People would be playing this in the year 2017.
Forever. I mean, hey, they weren't wrong, right?
But then you couldn't pass it around to your great-great-great-grandchildren who don't give a shit about you.
Well, I know that, so it was the Kennard Novelty Company, and the guy that owned that, Charles Kennard, he got a bunch of different people to help him kind of come up with this board and help him invest in getting like a prototype down.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them, let's see, his last name was Bond. Let me try to find Elijah Bond. He was an attorney, which I think is kind of interesting. It almost seems like he wanted, somebody on board to handle like the claims of like this is proven scientifically. It almost seemed like he wanted to have somebody like that.
Yeah.
That could answer all of the
the technical mishmash and know-how.
Yeah. But
because if there's a Brit, there's somebody who's like, we need to bean count this.
Well, that's the thing. I think it's just so funny they had to prove it. Well, Elijah Bond, his sister-in-law, he was like, oh, she's got a lot of like strong powers. She's a medium. Well, she was the one that came up with the name Ouija board. So she came up with that, and a lot of people thought that it was based off of somebody that she was really fond of, a women's rights activist, Oida.
Is that like the pink pill on
pink
Reddit?
Pill? Yeah, I guess. I mean, well, so I mean, she was so fond of this individual that she had a locket.
Suffrage, I would say, right?
She was a suffragette. She was a famous author. She had a locket with Oida on it, and she thinks that it was like maybe a play on that, a Ouija board. It was kind of spelled the same as this person's name. So it was almost as if it was like a nod to her. But she claimed, that the board gave the name. And when they asked, what does that mean? The board said, good luck. So kind of an interesting origin story there for that.
Yeah.
But they did prove that it could work. I guess what happened was the board spelled out the name of the patent officer, and that officer was just like, oh, it's real, I believe it, you've scientifically proven it to me, we're good. Pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Pretty crazy. What do you think? Do we need to have a Ouija board session?
No, I
find
think...
out if your place is haunted?
I think you and I... no, we don't.
You don't want to find out?
No, I think that...
Come on, let's like...
I think the scientific explanation for it is the idiomotor effect.
You're an idiomotor.
I am an idiomotor. Yeah, I would say... Okay, so I know we're, like, into the episode, but I do want to say, like, of all my making fun of the English... And the UK.
He just wants to be one.
I actually am one.
No, that's alright.
I'm my grandfather's family. My paternal grandfather is a Jones, obviously, because that's where the name comes from.
You don't say.
His his grandfather, my great grandfather, was Joshua Jones, who fought in the Civil War under Sherman. But he was married.
The good side.
He was, yes. He helped burn Georgia to the ground. Which
You're smiling when you say that. I just want you all to know the look on his face.
It's so satisfying.
It's like
I'm on the right side of history.
Sorry, Georgia.
Where's my great grandfather's statue?
Knock one down and stick his up. How about that?
Right, I'm good with that. Even if it's like an inflatable wacky arms thing. Like
and you just write on it.
It'd be like my grandpa, like, and then like inflatable flames.
Oh, jeez.
And then just go on a tour of the South and see how long I live.
Go on a tour of the South and pop your toes and show them all you can talk to your dead grandpa.
His wife was a Drake, and her family goes back to Sir Francis Drake, the famous slaver and privateer. Not a cool guy, but it goes back to basically old school Wales and even English royalty if it goes back far enough. So, I could.
So he's English royalty, everyone.
I'm an Anglophile. This is a fourth of my heritage. So
does that give the right to make fun of him?
Yes.
Is that what you're claiming?
Yeah,
right.
That is our word. This is
it's our podcast. We can say whatever we want.
Yeah. Oh, look, our sponsor just dumped us. Who's our sponsor?
Me.
Yeah.
I'm our sponsor.
Hey, don't leave us.
Don't leave. All right, I'll have to do some talking, but I think I'll convince myself to stay.
Okay.
Well, on that note, I guess we'll wrap this up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for listening to the Victorian Spiritualism era, part 2.
Let us know what you think the next episode should be on. Do you want us to do a whole episode on the Ouija board, or is there another topic you guys are really interested in?
I like revisiting it. Like, give it some time to breathe.
Absolutely.
Right.
Any topic we've done, I know we've said this before, we'd love to revisit. Listen to us, listen to our episodes, give us some thoughts, feelings.
Yeah, send us an email.
Let us know. You can send us an email at campfirecurmudgeon@gmail.com. And they can twat us at
cfcurmudge at
that's on Twitter. We're Campfire Curmudgeon on Instagram. We are also Campfire Curmudgeon on Facebook.
Facebook seems to be the place to go. So I would say leave us a comment about your Ouija board story because I want to hear it.
And don't forget, we still have something going on Instagram where we want you guys to send us in your pictures. You can send us in a fairy picture if you want to do a Victorian era like fairy picture, or if you want to do the ectoplasm, we would love for you to send in your ectoplasm photos. Just post those on Instagram. If you don't have an Instagram, go ahead, post it on Facebook. Just make sure you tag us in those photos, and you can also add to it some ghost photography if you feel like it.
All right.
Thanks everybody. Keep the campfire burning.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. New and Prince Albert, so if you want
in a can.
What is Prince Albert in a can? Is it a dessert? I can't remember.
It's a joke. I think it's about
I
think it's about a pierced dick.
No. Look it up. Because it's a thing that you wouldn't expect it to be. It's not what you expect.
I can't believe I'm Googling this.
Do it.
Oh, okay, so it's Prince Albert in a can Prince Albert was the name of like a tobacco that you could buy.
See? Yes.
And what happened?
It's weird.
So what happened is people turned it into a dad joke because it came in metal tins, kind of like corned beef. You'd twist it around the bottom and then open up the tin. And so you'd call someone and be like, "Hello, do you have Prince Albert in a can?" And they'd be like, "Yes, why?" "Well, you think you better let him out then." It's like when you call somebody and say, "Is your refrigerator running?" Yeah. It's a fucking...
Yeah, that sounds like, I know it's a joke, but it's a real thing.
It's a fucking stupid joke. What am I thinking of? The whole dick piercing thing.